Started. So for this last section, we're going to do something that apparently hasn't really been done before according to Speed 2. So let's dive right into that. And last session, in the fourth section, we started looking at making our own little platoon function here. And during between last session and today's session, I kind of figured out a way to use state machines and state machine logic to give that platoon function a bit more feeling to it, so that you can really make predictable behavior for the AI, which is something that players really appreciate if it is your ally. If it is your opponent, then that's typically not appreciated. But in this case, we are making some behavior for our ally that we can ping the ally to attack something, and then the ally will inform us that he's ready to attack. So let's look at it. I started the recording. So what are we starting with? Let's first look at this particular function that we have right here. But we're not going to be looking at it through the code. We're first going to be making a state diagram. And it doesn't really matter what tool you use. I like to use draw.io for these type of simple diagrams. Any tool suffice. A piece of paper with a pencil works too. But for the sake of the fact that, you know, I have to record this, I'm just going to use draw.io. And what is the idea of a state machine? A state machine is essentially a bunch of blocks. Right, let's start simple. And then there are events that can happen that can cause us to go from one block to the other. So let's make this a bit more concrete. In this particular platoon function that we have right here, we have a bunch of interceptors that we want to, by default, patrol the base. But if the command unit of the player is being attacked by a bomber, we want them to go and help the command unit. So that means that we have two states already. We have the patrol base state, which is the default state that we start in. We have the defense command unit state. And we have this secondary state where once we have defended the command unit, we probably want to linger around the command unit for a while before we return to base. Otherwise, we end up taking down the unit and then the interceptors go back right away, which looks kind of bad. So we can have this linger around command unit state. And these arrows are going to describe how we can switch from one state to the other. So let's mark this as the initial state. Usually these state diagrams start somewhere. And we're going to use this little black dot for that. There we go. And now we're gonna make it black. And usually there is a there it is. So this is the state that we start from. So our little interceptors start by patrolling the base, and we only want to try and defend the command unit if the command unit is actually under attack. Now, this trigger is something that we can find again in the base game files. So if we look at the unit class, which is what every unit is made from, we've got these event callbacks that are called the moment something happens with the unit. And in this particular example, we want to know when the unit is damaged. So that if the unit is damaged, we want to check, is it being damaged by an air unit? And if that's the case, then we want to hunt down that air unit because he's being an ass to our allied command unit. So we have one trigger here going from patrol base back to defend command unit. And we're going to call that the... Oh, that's not exactly what I wanted. We're going to call that the undamaged trigger. So this trigger causes us to go to this patrol base state to the defense command unit state. And in the defense command unit state, we fly towards the culprit, right, the damage dealer, and we take it down. And after that, once it's taken down, we could immediately return. We could say something like this. If I'm not correct, then you could make these into curves. I fucked up. Yeah, that's better. We could do something like this. Right, so on damaged, we defend the command unit, and if that unit, because we have more callbacks, we could say, well, if the target that we're trying to take out is killed, then we have an unkilled that takes us back to patrol base. But what happens then is if you have this command unit standing somewhere here and he's being attacked by one bomber, the interceptors come in, they shoot down the bomber and they go back again, which is a bit of a waste. So kind of when the bomber is taken down, so when the bomber dies, we don't want to immediately go back to our patrol base state, but we want to go to this linger around command unit state. And from this linger around command unit state, if the command unit is damaged, then we go back to this defense state. Right, so here we go. And if the command unit doesn't get damaged, then at some point the interceptor should return to base. So we have this timer-based trigger that brings us back to this patrol base right here. And this is going to be our state machine for these interceptors. And let's look at how that's actually made in code, so that we have an example when we make our next state machine, which is going to be us being able to control bombers. So let's look at this. We have, let's see if this split screen idea of mine is going to work out. Let's get rid of all of that. There we go. That's one side, and then we have the other side, which is right here. There we go. All right. So this is going to introduce some new syntax, which is going to be difficult to get used to. It's not simple syntax either. I may be completely overcomplicating the entire, the entire thing here. But let's look at it. We have this interceptor command defense behavior. This originates from what we have here, right? We were making this operation AI that builds a platoon, which is this interceptors platoon from the air attacks file with this name right here, and the function that the platoon runs when the platoon is finished, so when the platoon is complete, originates from this platoon's functions.lua file, which is in our project right here. And that is the interceptor command defense behavior. And the platoon data that we're giving it is the armies that we want to protect, the categories that we want to protect, and the default patrol chain. So the armies that we want to protect would be all the co-op players. The categories that we want to protect would be the unit types that we want to keep safe. In this case, that is the categories.command. And the default patrol chain would be the patrol chain that we have surrounding our base. So if there's nothing happening, then we use the patrol chain to patrol our base, and we can find the units that we're interested in protecting by going over all these armies that we want to protect and then finding all the units with these categories and then adding this callback to them. So that's what we have on this end of the script. So let's look at the actual implementation. So first of all, we retrieve some information and we give them a type, because that just makes it easier to work with. So now we know that this is an array of numbers, this is some categories combinations, and this is a string. We get the army brain, and then for every unit in our platoon, right? So here we get all the platoon units, and we get all the units that match our, well, we get one unit in this case that matches our categories, which is the command unit. And then we initiate the behavior with the interceptor, right? So this would be, just to clarify this slightly, this would be the interceptors. This would be an interceptor. This would be the target that we're trying to protect, the command unit. And this is the default patrol chain for our patrol base. Now, when we create a new instance of a class, the underscore init function is called, and that's this function right here. So let's look at what we have. First of all, we've got this base chain, we've got a target that we're interested in protecting, and we've got the unit that we are trying to give an AI to. And then we've got these different states. And let's start with the states before we start looking at anything else. We've got the patrol base state. So if we get into the patrol base state, the main function is run. If we want to debug, which is always useful, then we log the fact that we are in the state. We change our own status so that we know that we are patrolling the base right now. And then we actually start patrolling the base. So we do issue clear commands so that all the previous commands, such as previous patrols or attack commands, are removed. And then we start patrolling the base right here by using that same function from the snare framework that we used previously. And that's all what we do in this state right here, in this patrol base state. Now, when we get into the protect target state, we're kind of doing the same thing. If we're in debug modus, then we tell through the Moho log that we are trying to protect the target. We try and find the instigator. Now, how this instigator is set is, we're going to get back to that in a minute. But this is the bomber or gunship that's attacking our command unit. We check if that instigator is still alive. Maybe something happened to it, like it got shot down. If it is still alive, then we change ourselves to the protect target state. We remove all previous commands, which would be us patrolling, right? Because we, from the patrol base state, we can get to defend command unit state. And we issue a direct attack from us, or interceptor, to the instigator. So that would be the attack order that you would give as a player. And then here you can see those unit callbacks that we were talking about, which is this list right here. And we're adding in a unit callback to the instigator that says, hey, if the instigator is killed, then I want to change my state that we're in, right, to the patrol target state, which is this linger around command unit state. So now, we were originally patrolling the base. And if we get into this protect target state, which is done by this on damage, then we check if the target that we want to intercept is still alive. And if it is, we start engaging it, and the moment it dies, we switch state to this patrol target state. And if the interceptor is if our target is no longer alive for some reason, then we switch state to the linger around command unit state. So then we skip this defend command unit state because the target that we were trying to attack is no longer alive, and we immediately start patrolling our command unit. And then we've got this patrol target, which is not very different from what we just did with the interceptors. So if you let's just go over it again. We debug ourselves to make it easier to see what's going on. If our target, aka the command unit, is still alive, then we are in the state patrol target. So then we're here in this linger around command unit. We remove all the commands from our unit, from our interceptor, and then we grab the current position of our target and we pick 2 random points around that current position. We issue patrol, we wait a bit, and then we change state back to patrol base. And that waiting that you see happening here is this timer trigger, right? So we wait for our state.patrol delay, which is defined here at the top of the class. Patrol delay is 60, debug is true. So we wait for 60 seconds before we change our state from the linger around command unit back to the patrol base state, which is what we're seeing right here. And then we've got a fourth state, which is not part of this diagram, but that's the blank state. And the blank state essentially states, I'm out of options. And this could happen when, for example, the command unit that we're trying to protect got destroyed. Right? We can't protect the target if there is no target anymore. So this is kind of the I'm done state. There's nothing I can do anymore. All right, but then let's look at how all of this actually triggers, because that happens here at the start. So we have, this appears to be duplicated code. So let me, did I mess up here? Yeah, it's the same thing. Same thing, same thing, same thing. I don't know why, but this is duplicated. Anyway, so what do we have here? Well, we initiated our state machine here using this class instantiation here. Right, and that's the same name that we have here at the top. Then we end up in this underscore init function, and if we have a target, then we add an on-damaged callback. That's the damage callback that we see right here. And that callback accepts a function and some additional parameters. Those other parameters is the amount of damage. If you set it to -1, it always triggers, and the number of repetitions. And if you set that to -1, then it keeps triggering indefinitely. We check if the instigator is not already destroyed. That's the check right here. We check if the instigator is a unit. And if it is a unit, then we check if it's an air unit, right? So we check if the category that the unit has is an air unit. And we are currently already patrolling the base, or we are currently patrolling the target. Then we keep track of the instigator in our current state, and we switch state to protect the target. And that's the on damage that we're seeing here. So then we end up in this protect target function, and now suddenly the state.instigator, which is the damage dealer, that's the bomber, where that's coming from is because we're defining it right here in our state. And then we kind of have this little circle here complete. Right, so let's go over it one more time. We start at the blue circle, and we start doing the patrol base, which is right here at the bottom. So after we initialized everything, then we start patrolling the base. If our command unit is attacked, so if this callback that happens when the command unit receives damage is triggered, we check, are we patrolling the base or are we patrolling the target? Right? Is our current state either of these? So are we in this or that state? Then switch us to protect target. Right? You can see that right here of the arrows. They both go to defend command unit. In protect target, we start attacking the bomber, and we add a unit callback to the bomber that says, well, if the bomber is killed, which is this right here, right, this on killed, then we want to just patrol the target, linger around the command unit. But if the instigator is already dead, then we just want to patrol the target too, right? So if there is no instigator, so as an example, when a bomber drops his bomb, but it gets destroyed before the bomb is dropped, then we just try and patrol the target, because apparently the command unit still got attacked, so he may need help again, but then we're nearby, because we're already going towards the command unit. And that's what we're seeing right here, right? So if the on killed happens from the defend command unit, then we linger around the command unit. Then we have this on damaged again, which means that if the command unit gets damaged while we're lingering around it, then we go back to this defend command unit. But if that doesn't happen, right? So here we've got these issue patrols still linger around. If it doesn't happen within the patrol delay, then we just go back to our patrol base. And that is the simple state machine that we have. Now, what is this blank state? Technically, at any of these states, the command unit could die, and then we would end up in this blank state. So we would need to have an arrow from every of these states to the blank state. But because that's really, you know, it doesn't make it more, it doesn't really tell us anything because every state can end up in the blank state. We're just going to leave out for now. At the moment, the blank state is also not implemented because there is no change state that changes us to blank. But what we would need to add is that if we have a target and that target dies, then we switch to blank. So in this case, state.target add unit add callback unit callback. There we go. And here we have the function which has the unit itself in it. And we need to tell what type of callback we're interested in. Well, we are interested in this case in onKilled. There we go. And if we're onKilled, if the command unit is taken down, then we switch state to state.blank. And that's all what we would need to add that arrow from every different state to the blank state. But enough talking, let's just view this in action. Now the debugging is turned on, so all these messages that we see here are written down. We can already see that they're currently patrolling the base. And if there is a Cybern gunship here, like this Stinger, very Cybern-ish, then now you can see already in the log that they went into this protect target state. And for some reason all my interceptors, oh, there's still no air station facility here. I thought I placed that in. Why are you not spawning? That's odd. But anyway, we should be able to see some interceptors. Here we go. This interceptor here is currently attacking the gunship here. This is by all means very exciting because they're out of fuel. So let's speed this up a bit. And there we have it. Now they are patrolling the target, right? And if we would add a bomber, and that bomber would then attack the target, then here you can see again that that went really fast. But let's look at the log. They were patrolling the target. The timer trigger hit, so they were going to patrol the base. But then our command unit got attacked again by the bomber, so they were protecting the target, and now they're patrolling the target again.
Question?
Huh?
Can it be adjustable for how long does the patrol the target?
Yeah, we can just change the patrol delay here to anything that we need. Or we could pass it as an argument here.
Is it counted in seconds or in like a build time or whatever?
Currently it's counted in seconds, right? So we got patrol delay, which uses the wait seconds function.
Okay.
And that is roughly the idea of this state machine that we have here. By all means, state machines are not trivial. They're not easy. So to get a bit more exercise with them, we're going to make another state machine. And in this case, we want to have a state machine that states, well, if there is a hostile unit walking through, let's simplify it slightly. If there's a hostile unit walking through the base of my ally, then I want to send in my bombers. So there's going to be a whole bunch of bombers here at the back somewhere, and if there is a hostile ground unit that's trying to walk into my base here, then those bombers will try and engage, and then they'll fly back again and wait there until their next assignment. So let's make that. This is going to be a simple state machine again, which by all means is not trivial. So let's add in our blue little dot. And then we add in our little arrow. And the first state that we have, if we look at our behavior here, is this idle state. Right, so we're just going to be, maybe these bombers are going to be patrolling their own base. Let's start with that. By default, these bombers patrol the base. And that's the UEF base in this case. And we could say, well, if there is, in some area around the command unit, if there is a land unit there, then we want to start attacking those land units. So let's do that. So if there is a on scan, let's make it slightly different. If there's an on scan, then we want to defend the command unit again. Right, so if we scan around the command unit and we find out that the command unit is in danger because there are land units nearby, then we want to defend the command unit by going to the command unit. So that would be a linger around command unit in this case. Let's assume we have gunships and not bombers. So the gunships linger around the command unit. If the command unit is damaged, so we have this on damaged callback here, then we are trying to protect the command unit. After that, we will have this timer trigger. So if the perpetrator, if the got killed, then we will start lingering around the command unit again. And then once we are done lingering around the command unit, at some point we're gonna have to return back to this patrol base, which is our time trigger. Now, the point I want to make here is that it kind of looks exactly functionally the same as this diagram. The point I'm trying to make here is that there are a lot of ways for you to draw the diagram. There is no one way set in stone to any degree. So always keep that in mind when you look at your diagram. If you didn't already made a sequence like this already, and in this case you could argue that if we would move this here and move that there and then fix all the lines, then it looks dangerously close to what we already have, but then with different conditions, right? So here, instead of only triggering when the command unit gets damaged, here we're trying to do it preemptively, where we're saying, well, the command unit didn't get damaged yet, but we're noticing that there are land units around the command unit, and we want to be ready for that. And then when the command unit gets damaged, then we start defending the command unit, which is slightly different from what we have here, but it's not far off. So let's make this. First of all, we're going to need those gunships. And for the sake of it, we're just going to assume that the AI cannot remake these gunships. He's going to have these gunships by default. And Speed mentioned that you can make a gunships D1, and then in here we can do M1 gunships D2. And then in here we can do M1 gunships D3. And then we need the gunships. So on the highest difficulty, we only have 3 gunships. Gunships, gunships, gunships. Where are you? There we go. So on the highest difficulty, we only have 3 of them. On medium difficulty, we have 4 of them. And on the easy difficulty, we have 6 of them. So that the AI is really able to help us out. Now, they're gonna spawn here at the back. Let's give them some more fancy orientation. Maybe we can make them return here too. We'll see how that ends up. So now we have the gunships. So let's start our little platoon behavior. We have a new function here, which is called gunship defense behavior. It doesn't have anything in it yet, but we just know that this is the gunship defense behavior right now. And because we're not gonna do it this way right here, where we have these operation AIs and then we add the platoon function when the platoon is finished, this is just gonna be a platoon that exists until it no longer exists. So that's a one-time logic setup. So here we have that work. So we got this gunships. Now we want to create it as a platoon because otherwise the base will take these units over, and they are called M1 gunships. M1 gunships. And then Speed, are you here?
Yeah.
How do I now? I did this setup with D1, D2, D3. How do I make this spawn more or less depending on difficulty?
Just concat the string in M1 gunships and the scenario option difficulty.
Okay, but there's no parameter for this function
No.
that does that for us. Okay,
No,
so
you
here
have to do
we
it
will
with the name.
gunships. Group name is M1 gunships, and then depending on the difficulty, which is stored here in difficulty, which is here at the top in scenario options, we want to spawn a different one. So here we go.
You don't need to do the string, it's done automatically.
Alright, we don't need to do that. And there we go. So now we've got the gunships. And just like the operation AI does, we can just attach this behavior here to our we can attach the behavior to our gunships. So let's load that in. Platoon functions is import slash platoon functions.lua. Now we don't need to add a path to the map, because in this case, if you don't add the slash, then it will use the same path that the file is in, which is in the same directory. So we can just write platoon functions.lua. And then platoon functions.lua. Sadly, the IntelliSense doesn't work with that, but that's fine. Gunships. There we go. So now if we start the game, then we should see this log message. And for the sake of it, let's find out what platoon units we have in here. we're actually with quite a lot of people. I didn't notice that. 35
Can you
minutes.
feel the pressure?
Yes, this is the moment where I
And
suddenly start making...
Now the AI fails, and
Yes.
what you can do.
Yes, this is where I start making a lot of mistakes, and then at some point I can't talk anymore, and then I wish everyone a good evening. All right. That really takes long. Oh, nice. Okay, so my brilliant plan here failed. Apparently this doesn't work. See, this is because now I notice that there's so many people here. So I just need to add the name of the folder, which is this, and then platoon functions. And that doesn't originate from anywhere, it originates from maps. So that should work. As you can see, the game is really enjoying the fact that I made this mistake. Keeps bumping those arrows. There we go. All right. Gunship defense behavior. We still have the... There we go. And we can see that we have 3 gunships because apparently we are on hard difficulty. Now, let's look at this. What do we need? Well, by default, we're going to patrol the base. So in here, we want to add in a chain of some sorts. And that chain is not defined yet. Then we want to linger around the command unit. So we need a target to protect. So let's just call this target again. And we want to defend the command unit, and that's the same target here. So target is some unit, we don't know yet. By the previous example, we retrieved that unit by doing this. So let's just do that again. Here, what we do is we get the army brain, and then we get a list of units, and then we want to have the command category in this case. So this is our target. We don't have a chain yet in the base for our gunships. By all means, we don't want these to be used for every little skirmish on the outer end. So we're gonna make a new chain specifically for the gunships, where we keep the gunships a bit to the back. So let's grab that. There we go. And then we have gunships. That's fine. And then we're gonna need some markers. So these are really just to protect the base and to protect ourselves. Chain, get the name, and 01, 02, and here we have 03. So now we have a chain here that we can pass to the script. So that's this right here. We've got the chain, we've got the units, we've got the command units. So special gunship behavior. All right. That's looking good. And let's go back here because currently we don't accept all these arguments. So let's add them in. The second argument was the chain. And the third argument was the command unit. And for the sake of typing, we're just going to give these the correct type. So this is a platoon. This is a chain, marker chain. And this is a unit. So that now if we do platoon colon, then we can see all the functionality that the platoon has. Which again is a lot of functionality that we'll dive into in a video in the future. Alright, and now we're just gonna need to actually create that class. So let's do that. Let's grab the units. Is platoon get platoon units? Because we're not going to use the platoon for anything. And the type on this is a list of units. So that we know now that this is a list of units with all the properties that go with that. And we're just going to create a new class. So let's do that. Let's copy this top bit. There we go. We don't know any of this yet. Gunships, defense behavior, and let's give that the same name. And let's start with the simple bits. And the simple bits is just writing out the correct states. So here we have this here as a template. We have one state which is called patrol base. So let's call that patrol base. And we are patrolling. Let's assume that currently we are debugging. And if we're in this state, then we're patrolling the base. Right, that's our current status. Then we have another state, which is called linger around command unit. Linger around. Let's call it that. No. You. Why is this not the same thing? Oh. Capital B, capital B. There we go. Don't forget the comma. And then we have another state which says defend command unit. So defend. And there we have this main function again. And don't forget the comma. And then we have got this blank state again, which kind of says, I don't know what to do anymore. There we go. So these are the 4 states. Now, let's see what we have. We have this init function where we can pass all these arguments that we need, just like we're doing right here. And when we create a new instance of this gunship's defense behavior, let's do that. This is units. Then we are actually calling this init function. So this is ourself. That's the gunships that we have. This is the target that we're trying to protect, and this is the chain. So in this case, we have, just to quickly check, yeah, we have the gunships, which is the units. So let's call that gunships. Then we have the unit that we're trying to protect, and then we got the chain. Right, that's the same order that we have here. And we want to store this information. So state.gunships is gunships. State.target is target. And then we have state.chain is chain. So that if we start changing our states, then we know then we always have this data available to us. And with this data, we can start defining what these states do. So in this case, we want to clear the commands of the units, right, which is the states.gunships. And we want to then move around this chain, which is scenario framework dot patrol chain. There we go. And then we state.gunships. And since we start with the patrol base, right, that's what this little dot here means. We start in patrol base. That means that here we have a change state. Patrol base. There we go. And make sure that you type it right. So now, if we restart, we should already see them patrolling instead of sitting on the ground. Unless I made a typo. Access to non-existent global variable gunship defense behavior. 10 out of 10. 181. What? Gunship defense behavior. Oh, of course. It has exactly the same name as this right here. So let's change that up a bit. How did I do it this time? Interceptor defense behavior state. Let's give this state. State. There we go. Oh. There we go. All right. So now we should be able to see this patrol base. While it's loading, let's look at linger around. Linger around was give or take the same thing as what we're doing here. Right? We chain name doesn't exist. Okie dokie. So we got this chain, state.chain, which is the chain which we're passing on here. Which we're passing on. Gunships chain command unit. Gunships chain command unit. Gunships command unit chain. Gunships command unit chain. Attempt to concatenate local chain name and nil value. Nice. Let's look at what we have. I think I'm defining it right there. This is not nil. Well, so let's start debugging. Log chain, and then here we do log state.chain. Oh. We're passing in the gunships. That's pretty silly. So state.chain. There we go. And for the lingering, we're kind of doing the same thing as the interceptors are doing. So let's just do all of that. We grab all of this. There we go. And we got our target here. So if we are lingering around the target, then we issue clear commands. We issue a patrol. We wait a bit, and then we go back to patrolling the base. Which is the same thing as what we're doing here, right? So if we are lingering around, so if the on-scan happened, then we just start patrolling the command unit. And we add this timer trigger, which is this waiting seconds here. And if that triggers, then we simply would change our state back to patrol base. Let's see if everything worked this time. No. Does anyone see the typo that I'm making? Because I'm not seeing it. State.state.patrol. Oh, right. We need to tell the units that are supposed to patrol. 10 out of 10. This is because there are 6 people watching right now. That's the pressure. Okay, so
don't be nervous.
Oh, I am. So here we have it. State.gunships. And now our gunship should finally... Oh, come on. Invalid chain. Because I didn't save. There we go. Attempt number 5222. Let's do it. Ooh, it didn't crash. So here they are flying. That looks good to me. Bunch of gunships looking epic, flying across the base. So that's this base patrol base function that we have here. Now, just to make sure that we're not looking at the interceptors debug messages. We're just going to set this debug here to false, so that for the interceptors, these messages no longer show. And now we need to define this defend behavior, which is again kind of the same thing that we have here. We're assuming that we have an instigator and that instigator is alive. Then we just try and defend. So if the instigator is not destroyed, then we try and defend. And we defend with the gunships again. And if the instigator is killed, then we change state back to patrol target, where patrol target in this case is linger around. Right, so that's the connection that we have here. We, if we are defending, then because the target got damaged, then we defend the command unit, and if the instigator is killed, then we go back to lingering around. And when we're lingering around, we've got this trigger delay here that brings us back to patrolling the base. Now the only question is, how do we do the on scan and how do we do the on damaged? So the on damaged we already did. So we're just gonna be slightly lazy and just copy that in. We have here at the init function, before we switch states, if we assume there's a state.target. If the instigator, so if we do this on damaged callback, if the instigator is not destroyed or the instigator is not dead, if the instigator is a unit, if it is not an air unit but a land unit in this case, because we have gunships, then we want to check our states. So if we're patrolling the base or we are lingering around, then we switch state to defend, because that's what we called it in this case, right? This defend state. And we set the instigator. And the instigator is what we need in the defend state to determine our target. So that's the on damaged callback. But now let's look at the other callback, which was the lingering. So we have this scanning functionality here that says, hey, if I find a land unit in the proximity of the command unit, then I already want to go there. And what we can do is scan around periodically, see what happens. So we wait a few seconds every now and then we know this state.target exists. So not is destroyed state.target. So as long as we have that state.target, and this needs to be in a fork thread. So let's put that in. This thread keeps running as long as our target is not destroyed, right, where that state is right here. And as long as it's not destroyed, then we can grab its brain. So we can say brain is state.brain, state.target.brain. And let's give this field here a type, so that we can do colon. No, that doesn't work. But let's give this a type anyway, which is a brain. There we go. And now if we do brain colon, if I can type brain colon, then we can see all these brain functions. And one of these brains functions is get list of get units around point. And we already used this function in if memory serves, right? So we're scanning for land targets. We want to use the state.target get position as its location. We want to scan in a radius of, say, 60, 80. And we only want to scan for enemy units. And now what we can say, if there are hostiles and there are more than 4 hostiles, and by all means this radius and this 4 here is pretty arbitrary, but if there are at least 4 hostiles and our current state, well, status is either patrol base or our state.status is linger around, right? So if we are in either of this linger state or in this patrol state, so that means that we have another undamaged. Right there. If we are in either of these states right here, then what we want to do is switch up again. So we want to change our state. But instead of going to the... oh, actually, I'm making a mistake here. We only want to go to the linger state if we are patrolling the base, right? This is the on-scan that we were making. My mistake. So if we are patrolling the base right now, and there is a unit nearby, then we want to start lingering around the command unit. And this is going to keep running until the command unit, our target, is destroyed. So let's look at it. We have our patrol base function, which, give or take, just patrols the base. We have this linger around, where we start patrolling around the command unit, and if we do that for long enough, then we go back to the base. And we've got this defend behavior that says, well, if the command unit is attacked, then I want these gunships to attack the instigator, the unit that did damage to the command unit. And if that instigator is already destroyed, then we want to go back to lingering around, where we just stay near the command unit because we think the command unit may be in danger. And that's pretty much it. So by all means, we wrote this perfectly in one go. And we made no typos because we're technically pair programming of 6 people here and everyone is watching my code. Awkward silence.
I watch it, but I just don't understand any of it.
That's okay.
Nice try.
I don't understand either because apparently I make mistakes. 209. Table expected got boolean. If hostiles. Oh yeah, right. This should definitely be outside of that. Alright, please just work because the video is heading to an hour. Okay, so it didn't crash, that's cool. So it's patrolling the base right now. Let's add in this Sally shares. And let's add in some mantis in the neighborhood here. So at this point, we only have 3 units. So the behavior that we're seeing here shouldn't trigger because it should be more than 4. But let's just move near the command unit. We're scanning in a radius of 80, right? We're getting the units around the point. 80 and only the enemy units. So let's spawn in 2 more. And now it crashes. But at least it did something, so that's nice. What is it crashing on though? Platoon functions 248. State the target, get position. Oh right, we didn't define this patrol delay. So patrol delay or linger delay in this case is going to be 60. That's how long it takes before we go back. Alright, so let's restart this real quick. linger around. This should be here at the top. And yeah, that's fine. All right, we got our command unit. Mantis. Let's just start with 5 right now and place them somewhere there. And then actually make them hostile. There you go. Crashing again. Pretty cool. 2, 5, 1. Again here. Stayed up because I called it linger delay. 10 out of 10. The same error twice in a row. Okay, attempt number 3. Mantis. 5 of them. Let's go. Now, what's now relevant is that the function that we're using here, this get units around points, actually uses the intel that we have. So it's not a cheating function in that sense. So now if we get intel, ooh, linger around. Okay, so now you can see the gunships triggered. They're going towards the command unit. Let's look at their... Okay, so they're all patrolling at the same point. That makes sense, right? Because we wanted them to patrol at the same point. And now they're just gonna linger around for a bit. Let's see what happens. Just gonna... Now what happens in this case is that they're gonna say, hey, we passed this timer trigger, right? That we have right here. That's the patrol base trigger. But then the on scan triggers again and says, no. You need to linger around. There are some hostile units there that may threaten this command unit. Alright. So let's get in a unit that has a lot of range. This shield disruptor, let's go. And then actually make that shield disruptor hostile. Let's go. Now I'm gonna receive damage. There we go. So now it says defense. So now you can see that the gunships are engaging on this shield disruptor. And it's doing so with 2 frames per second, give or take. And now the unit is gone again, so they go back to lingering around, right? And they want to stay near the command unit, so now they're patrolling this area again. And if I would walk my command unit to safety by warping it, then by all means they're gonna keep lingering around right here, which is kind of lame. I suppose that what we would really want to happen here is have a bunch of wait seconds of say 0. Something like this, and then we want to restart. We want to redo this. By all means you should put this in a for loop, but this is just for the quick... Oh, this looks really bad. Okay, doesn't matter. But now they should at some point go back to the base. Run with the wind. There we go. They're going back to patrol the base, right? So now they're flying somewhere here. And we still don't have that air station facility for some reason. And that's it. That's our little state machine. So now if I go back here, where I'm getting close to these mantis. There we go. They're going to linger around again. So now these gunships are coming to stay near us in case we need the help. And that's a very basic state machine that we made here. By all means, it doesn't look perfect. For example, the gunships all patrol in the same area and that kind of looks bad. right? Doesn't really look that exciting. You kind of want them to just maybe move around here a bit every now and then, change the behavior up slightly. But that doesn't mean that it's not working. Right? We made our own little AI, predictive AI, right? The player can learn how this behavior works and it could use that behavior to its advantage. That makes our little AI player here that we have quite a bit more informative, quite a bit more fun.
Question.
Yes.
And it's a bit of a curveball, but like, could it be like better, like instead of on scan, it should be like maybe on when ACO receives some kind of damage, and then they like send the patrol? Wouldn't be that like better? Maybe.
Yeah, that's what the previous behavior did here. So this is with the interceptors. The interceptors, what they did, if the command unit gets damaged, right? That's this behavior here at the top. If it gets damaged, then we defend the command unit and then we linger around. But here we decided to do something different. We tried to be more preemptive. Instead of only triggering on damage, which means that the gunships may still be here in the base, but we need them now. We scan around, linger around the command unit as long as the danger is near. And if the command unit gets damaged, then we trigger the damage dealer specifically.
Okay.
So that's it's exactly the same thing, right? What you described.
Yeah, but instead of on damage, it's like on scan, so like you can anticipate the attack rather than just like facing it directly. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and by all means, both of these are very valid. They allow you to make the AI feel more alive. By all means, I think that when we linger like this, the lingering should be a bit more AI-ish and not this lame-ass patrol that we have right now. For example,
another question that would I have, like, wouldn't be like, is it possible? I don't know how to put this in words. Like, would it be possible if it detects like a certain unit in the like area that it does like a patrol? Let's say like experimental or like something like that.
Yeah. So if you, for example, look here at the trigger, here it is. We scan. We get the units around the point of a given category. So now we scan for land units in general, but you could have any category here. And there are a lot of categories, right? If you do categories dot, these are all types of categories that you could use to more, give it a better definition of when it should do something.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And this is a very small state machine. In the future, we're going to tackle a larger state machine, just to give you an idea of how you can work with these state machines. By all means, if all of this went past you, you don't need to do this for your campaign. There are a lot of platoon behaviors already defined for you, right? So last time we spoke, for example, of the platoon behaviors in scenario platoon AI. All of these behaviors that are here, you can just use them and you'll have a campaign that works just as well as any other campaign. But for the sake of the fact that we're trying to learn here, that we're trying to expand to what's possible, we're experimenting with these state machines and see if they are any good to us. And so far, I'd say it's pretty promising. Let's finish up our objective real quick with the land factory, and then I say we're calling it a day because we're already 70 minutes in. There we go. All right. That's it. That's gonna sum it up for today. Next session we'll be looking at cinematics, and I'll be making a few intermediate videos where I'll just be working on making this base here more responsive, right? So that would not be a programming session, but I will record it because we will be doing essentially the same thing that we did for this base right here, so that the base starts sending out units across the water, across this ice, and starts attacking, etc. And then after the cinematics, we're going to be looking at starting mission part 2. And in this case, we're going to be working on a non-linear mission where either you take out the right base and then expand the map to the right, or you take out the top base here and then expand the map to the top. Or you take them out both and then, you know, the map expands into the top right. Yeah. But that's it for today. I hope this was any useful. Considering that someone just said that he wasn't able to follow along. Was this useful? Was this interesting?
It was interesting. It's just like I just feel like I'm missing like I still haven't watched the first video, so I still kind of feel like I'm missing a beat. But once I caught up, I should be like more informed on how everything functions.
All right, and other people?
Yeah, definitely nice.
Yeah, I would say the coding difficulty just went through the roof with custom state machines.
Yes, I agree.
For someone who didn't do much coding, this is like the advanced stuff.
Yeah.
So if you're worried about not following along, just stick to basic patrols and chains, and with that you can already do really interesting missions, and then you can do some small, more specific things, and well, maybe one day you'll have state machines as well.
Yeah, by all means, this is pretty advanced in terms of campaign missions. So Speed is right about that. What about you, Rowie? I think Rowie's.
I was eating.
There we go. He was eating. That works. All right. I'm gonna sum it up then, and then we'll talk.